We've just started the online YouTube stream, so if you could please call the meeting to order again. We're
sure.
ready now.
Will do. I'd like to call to order the Homeless Strategies Workgroup meeting for March 30th, 2020. It is 1 p.m. and staff will call the roll.
Okay, this is Kathy Halka with the council office, and I'm just going to run through all the members of the Homeless Strategies Workgroup. So we have Tyler Schroeder, who looks like is not present. Councilmember Buchanan.
Here.
And we have Councilmember Frazee.
Here.
And if I could just remind you all to please mute your mics unless you're speaking to avoid any echoes, I'd appreciate that. Councilmember Lillquist.
Here.
Councilmember Hamill.
Here.
Mayor Fleetwood.
Here.
Riley Sweeney. Not here. Commissioner Shepard.
Here.
Hans Erkinger Davis had said that he was unable to attend today. Mike Parker. Looks like he's not here. Oh, you are. Great.
Here.
Okay. I heard you. Thank you. Marcus Steedham.
Hello, this is me. Hi.
Okay. Thank you. Nick Lewis. Councilmember Lewis is not attending today. So we have Ann Back. Ann Deacon is on the call for the health department. So
I'm here.
Dean White. I see we have Jen Daly participating on behalf of Dean White today.
Yep.
Thank you. We have Deputy Chief Florence Simon.
That's Flo. I'm here.
Flo. Thank you. Do we have Under Sheriff Chadwick today? No. Mike Hilly? Nope. And Guy Ochagrosso? No. Okay, that completes the roll. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Hey, who is Spinner Studio? There's
Pardon me?
there's an account here that says Spinner Studio. Who is that?
Yes, I'd
that's
be
the
happy
streaming-
to answer that. David Brown with Spinner Studio is providing services for this meeting today to live stream the meeting on YouTube. So he's supporting us with that aspect. So
Okay,
this
thank you.
meeting is public, open to the public, and we've notified the media and they are able to listen online and follow the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so today's meeting is basically going to be in a couple of sections. The first section is going to be Ann Deacon is going to kind of brief us on what's going on with the homeless and the COVID-19 issue from out at Whatcom Unified Command. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the funding opportunities that we have. And then once we get kind of through all that, we're going to go into kind of a brainstorming mode on ideas that we think would be valuable going forward through this crisis for the homeless population. So I'm going to turn it over to Ann Deacon. Oh, and by the way, when we get to the kind of the Q&A section or the ideas, it gets kind of confusing how to recognize people. So if you will, at that time when we get to Q&A, make sure you have your cameras on. If you want to speak, raise your hand so it's showing and leave it up because I may not see it. You raise it. And then when I call on you, do state your name and title again for the record because since we need to have this documented on the audio. So I would appreciate it if you all could kind of follow those guidelines. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andy.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the county received a grant from the Department of Commerce at the state for $905,821. These are all state funds, no federal funds. And it was expressly designed to address people experiencing homelessness who are in need of social distancing, isolation and quarantine, and really looking at public health issues related to that. And so this is a very short-term contract. It goes from the date of execution through the 30th of September. And I'll just run through briefly some of the activities that we are doing. So the first thing we did was relocate the drop-in center at the Lighthouse Mission to Bellingham High School. And that was really in order to promote sufficient social distancing. There was not any way to have people 6 feet apart at the current facility that they had. And this was really important to make sure that we could immediately intervene and reduce or at least slow transmission. And so we have a contract with the school district to cover costs for things like repairs and maintenance, utilities, security, food services, custodial services. We also have a contract with the Lighthouse Mission Ministries for additional personnel needed to oversee the larger space. That, somebody was asking how much are we spending in that? That endeavor is almost $525,000. Included in that, I didn't say also, is laundry services. So we also contracted with a laundry service program to make sure that we could keep linens, towels, etc. clean. The next activity is identifying facilities for isolation and quarantine. So just to be clear, isolation is for those people who are actively experiencing symptoms but don't need hospitalization. And so some level of medical monitoring at least is probably necessary. And then quarantine is for those who have been exposed to somebody with positive COVID-19, but not showing symptoms, yet their homeless housing situation does not have the capacity for quarantine. So if you think of some of our programs, for instance, the YWCA that has individual rooms for some people, but for others, they're all in one place. And so it just doesn't provide adequate quarantine facilities. So some of the strategies we are looking at right now, and probably by the week's end, these will be finalized. One thing that is being looked at throughout this nation is working with motels to secure a number of rooms or maybe an entire motel so that people in isolation not only have individual rooms, but their own bathroom facilities, cooking capability if possible. And then, of course, we would need to ensure food, hygiene, sanitation supplies, medical personnel monitoring on site, etc. If for some reason we even needed more surge capacity beyond a facility, we might also look at even modular units or tents, certainly thinking about ways to keep people separated if they needed to be isolated or quarantined. So maybe even individual tents. Part of this, as you can imagine, is finding the appropriate personnel to oversee and monitor these services. And that also is being worked on to make sure that we have some level of medical oversight for people in isolation to be sure they're not getting worse. And then also there is some talk about for those who might be at particular risk of heightened behavioral health conditions as a result of more stimuli, etc., that, you know, we may even need a separate facility for people who need a higher level of intensive support. Other things that we're looking at with these funds is supplies, sanitation, hygiene, personal protective equipment for people living unsheltered, and as well for case managers and workers who are working with those people. Right now, there is a shortage of personal protective equipment, as all of you have heard, I'm sure. And there is a tier system developed nationally about who would get first priority for these personal protective equipment supplies. Obviously, healthcare workers directly working with patients are near the top, at the top. Case managers working with the homeless population are a tier 4. We have been talking with the governor's office about this concern, and that we feel like these folks are at a higher risk for transmission. So we just wanted to make sure that if there was any possibility to get them moved up on the tier basis, we can. I'm not sure that that will happen. The human services staff at the county are providing ongoing support, consultation, coordination with the homeless housing providers. As you can imagine, lots of different situations are coming up that we need to deal with, figure out what resources, if any, we have that can address some of them. It's a very difficult time for people, and we have a lot of heroes out there working in this field. What I will say is when we look at the money for the drop-in center relocation and then the isolation and quarantine facility, that $900,000 will likely be all used up. We're hoping we can pull some for supplies if they become available, and we'll certainly do that as well. I believe there were a couple other questions, Kathy, that you had asked. I think in terms of, oh, right, can the grant be used to help find or purchase a new permanent drop-in center location or building? I did send out a list of eligible activities that Kathy, I believe, sent out within the last half hour. Capital construction as well as acquisition is an eligible cost. We do not have the funds to do that, not to mention some of the challenges that the Lighthouse Mission had previously just in terms of siting a new drop-in center. But I will tell you that right now our $900,000 sounded like a lot of money until we started to realize that in order for us to provide services to the largest number of people possible, we used it up fairly quickly. Commerce did say, please ask for more if you need it and let us know about the unmet needs. However, they also told us that they don't have any more money to give right now. So we'll see what happens there. So that's the Cliff Notes version. Are there questions?
Hi there, this is Michael Shepard. I'm wondering what the capacity of the high school is in comparison to the original drop-in center for people it can house.
They are able to house approximately 50 more people than they were at the other drop-in center, and that is with the appropriate 6 feet distancing as well. So about 200, up to 200 people a night.
Is there anything that policymakers can do to support the reclassifying of homeless case workers to a higher tier? Is there anything that we can do?
You know, I think certainly a note to the governor's office, but I think it might be bigger beyond the governor. I think people are looking right now at national standards. So it's challenging. I think it wouldn't be a challenge if there was enough personal protective equipment out there. And as you know, we're quickly trying to get that as well as everywhere else in the nation.
Thanks.
Yeah, Marcus.
I'm concerned about the 6-foot spacing that we are actually seeing at the BHS. I've been seeing images coming out of BHS that are a little tighter than all that. And so I'm concerned about that. And I was wondering if there's any way we can expand beyond the area that they've given us in there to do that work. I just, we have, if there's a classroom, then, and we need to isolate somebody in a classroom, there's a classroom, that's easy enough to do. I'm just talking about the here and now, what's available. I want to make sure that, I understand the BHS has only opened up the cafeteria and the gymnasium. But I just want to make sure that if there's people that need shelter, that they can get their 6 foot space. And if that means by bleeding over into another space in the school, that shouldn't be, something we couldn't clean up after. That's my thought.
I will say that we've certainly had the health department over there working closely with the Lighthouse Mission and the school district to ensure that the best practices possible are being implemented. Even in terms of mats on the floor in the gym, they're making sure to the extent possible that one person is assigned to one mat, that the mats aren't necessarily picked up each day, that they sleep people head to toe as opposed to head to head. So those are all things being discussed. There was talk about using other rooms right now, but I think what we're really looking toward is some isolation facilities for people who really need that more than they need to be with a lot of people in a congregate setting.
Mike Parker, then Michael Lilliquist.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for the update. I was recently on a call with a healthcare authority, and they were talking about Portland and Multnomah County taking advantage of FEMA funds. Are you aware of, or is Whatcom County and Washington State also pursuing some of these new FEMA funds available for emergency sheltering? And then my second question, and it's kind of to that, the other part of the call was really talking about medical respite, and that could be expanded now from what we were talking about for medical respite, just on an ongoing need in our community, but it's specifically regarding isolation, quarantine, and moving people out of the hospital. I was wondering if you could comment on that.
So the isolation facility that's being pursued absolutely will help folks discharging from the hospital who don't need that level of care, but still need a safe, secure place to recover and with some medical monitoring in place. As you can imagine, Unified Command is working with FEMA, and I have seen a number of different announcements from different places about FEMA funding in different categories. So I don't know if I can speak to the exact one you were talking about, but we're certainly trying not to leave any stone unturned.
Michael Lilliquist.
Yes, thank you. Anne, is the health department aware yet of any individual experiencing homelessness who either is likely COVID or has COVID-like symptoms? And kind of equally important, what sort of vigilance procedures do we have to identify people who are homeless who then might develop COVID or COVID-like symptoms?
So I can certainly tell you that we've been working with our homeless providers in the Lighthouse Mission in terms of signs and symptoms and how to keep aware and diligent about the people you're working with. Just make sure that if there's a reason to be concerned that action is taken. I can't divulge any confidential information. I don't know of any particular people who are living without a home right now who have been tested positive. I think it is safe to assume that there are people in our community who do have COVID-19. That doesn't fully answer your question, but I think it would be safe to assume there are people who are homeless that have COVID. I think our plan obviously is to make sure that we have a place for those people ASAP.
Other questions for Ann? Mark?
Yeah, and I don't mean to beleaguer the issue. I'm just concerned about the placement of the mats that I've been seeing come out, the images that I have seen come out of BHS. They're under 6 feet. And so if we're all going to do our very best, we need to start there, I'm thinking. And if that means we're going to have less census because of it, then maybe that's what's necessary. I know that I've had a lot of, we do outreach stuff and a lot of people have contacted me, what should I do? And the ones that I know that are good campers, I tell them that I suggest that you stay right where you are and let us know where you are and let us know what we can bring to you. But as far as bringing people too tightly together, just because we don't have more space available, it may not be the answer here either. I don't want to turn anybody away, but we've done that before with the drop-in center, and that's kind of why we're here anyway. So there you go.
So I'll check with our health department that has been, the staff who've been working out there, and ask that they go out and take another look. And you are right, people who are in encampments right now are probably best to stay there if they can keep their distance in those situations.
Yes, and I'm also
Yeah, go
trusting.
ahead.
I'm also trusting that the police department is letting those people stay there. I'm trusting that at this point. But yeah, I'm hoping that we can do that. I'm also concerned about the behavior just outside the drop-in center, the new drop-in center, the VHS. Just concerned that people need to, if it's not being monitored, try and keep people separated somehow, because it sounds like they're mixing it up pretty much a lot outside too.
I think that is a concern. As you can imagine, it's being addressed on a pretty regular basis from what I've understood. And yes, humans are hard to control.
Any other questions for Ann? So we've heard about, the concept of the motels and potentially the high school. Anybody have any other thoughts on what kind of increased capacity we could get during this time? Yeah, Marcus.
I just want to put out, I like the idea of an emergency tent encampment that provides the real separation. And if we can find a way for somebody to run that, and all that, that'd be great. But also, it's been bantered around the old St. Luke's or the other St. Joe's annex has suites in it. And then the more buildings we have with suites in them, like classrooms or suites, the better chance you've got of creating a lot of separating and isolation that I think maybe something we should be looking for, something that's already existing with suites like that, including motels.
Michael Lilliquist.
I'm thinking about our other major institutions, ETC and Whatcom Community College, that may have large auditorium space. I don't know, but I might disagree with what Marcus was saying, that many small rooms does isolate some people from each other, but then you all have to pass through the same door in and out, that maybe an open floor plan is actually easiest. I'm guessing there, but have we talked with those other major institutions about things like auditorium space and gymnasium space?
Unified Command has a very long list of facilities that they have spoken with, and have gotten agreement from a number of them if there's some potential to work with them. So they are absolutely reaching out to any possible facility for surge activity.
So Jen Daly, can you do you have any updates? What's going on with Northwest Youth Services during this time?
Sure. We have the ground floor still open. We've put in some safety measures for young people that are coming in. A lot of the young people that we're seeing are either camping. A few of them are staying at the high school now. And then the pad we had to close down. So we found safe housing for the 3 or 4 youth that were there. And we'll reopen on the 6th with some new safety measures in place. Ann mentioned it's hard to control humans. It's also hard to control young humans when they enter a facility without rules and you try to change them on them. So we are instituting some new policies and procedures with the new youth that come in. There is some capacity for isolated beds there, but it's pretty limited and it'll be really staff intensive. So we're still, I think, in conversations with our folks at the health department about what that may be able to look like in the future.
Okay, thank you. What about Mike Parker? Do you got any news from the Opportunity Council you want to share?
Hi, Barry. Thanks. Yeah, we continue to work with the health department on PPE. Obviously, we have our street outreach team. We're not at full staff with that. And currently we are using donated PPE equipment. Obviously that stuff, you can reuse it, and we're trying to find guidelines about safe and responsible reuse of PPE equipment. What we have been finding, Barry and everyone else, is that, and Marcus probably knows this too, but there's really varying degrees of understanding about how dangerous things are. And so some folks really are not taking it very seriously and don't know much. And but we did work with the health department, who gave us a flyer. So we're passing that out and really trying to emphasize people using proper information sources and not just word of mouth or what's on Facebook. So we're doing a lot of information. And although we are not health providers, we are going to some of those encampments, like Marcus said, because we're finding people do not have things like hand sanitizer. Obviously, they don't have toilet facilities. And with our parks and recreation facilities around the state and the city closed to public use, there's very little access for people to be able to get clean, which is of great importance to us. So we are distributing as much as we can hand sanitizer. Again, most of that was donated or bought off Amazon before it disappeared. So that's an ongoing need. We will continue to evaluate how long we can keep hot in the field safely. And a lot of that does depend on PPE. So we'll be eagerly following Ann's pursuit of changing the category level of homeless housing workers from a category 4 to something that could actually receive some PPE, because we do think there's value. Our team wants to be out there. We're just helping them navigate the safety features. And then just very briefly, so people know, Opportunity Council, obviously, we're still doing intakes, and it's really important that we don't stop our coordinated entry. We don't stop housing people. That work needs to continue. So we are doing that kind of remotely, and we're calling people. So there's just a huge importance of for folks that don't have phones yet, that haven't been hooked up with a Lifeline provider, that may be the only way they're getting healthcare. It may now be one of the links to housing. So doubly important, and just want to have that out there so the public knows that there are resources for people who don't have phones to get a phone, because it's really going to be a key access point to everything. But we are still doing intakes, and we have notices posted at Opportunity Council and ways to get a hold of us so we can still do housing work. And any questions anybody has, I'm happy to offer.
Carol?
Yes, I just had a question for Jen. If you've seen, Jen Daly, if you've seen an increase in the number of youth that are coming into the ground floor, or is it staying the same?
It spikes on Mondays, actually. Mondays, I think after the weekend, we see a spike, because youth can come in and get showers and get supplies. So we generally see a spike on Mondays, and then it's actually a lot lower during the days. We assume that young people that are generally coming in there are couch surfing, which scares us a little bit, right? I mean, so I think it's about education and spreading the word to our housed youth, because often our housed youth that we're supporting in the community are connected with the young people who are unhoused, and they lean on each other. So I'm really educating our housed youth on what isolation means and getting them phones. Like Michael suggested, we've purchased a lot of phones for young people and are buying groceries and stuff, and really encouraging them to stay put. And not let their friends couch surf, which is a weird thing for us to say, because in general we're encouraging young people to support each other. So,
Mike Hill, you have anything for us from EMS or the Grace Program?
Not too terribly much. Thanks for asking. We've been out in the Unified Command for the last couple of weeks trying to figure some of this stuff out, and I know one of our priorities this week is to find an alternate isolation area for those homeless or can't go home people that are suspected or COVID positive. So hoping to make some progress on this week. I will say that starting this afternoon, we have a cabulance service that's going to start operating in the area. So this will help us move around some of these patients that are positive or suspected positive without having to use an ambulance. And so this is a wheelchair style of van that has separated the driver from the back and provide PPE where the driver can be protected from the patient. And so this can be used for, getting from the hospital, maybe back to the homeless shelter, or maybe somebody that needs to get to an appointment for testing that the community paramedics can help with, or of course the Grace team. And I know the Grace team's been pretty involved with the homeless shelter down at Bellingham High School. Millar's been working really hard down there to be in that community and support them. So those are a couple of updates, I think, from us. So the EMS system is actually doing okay right now. Call volume is steady. We know it's maybe set to take a sharp upward turn here in the next week or two. But for right now, I think just because everybody's staying at home and there's less traffic and less people moving around, it's really going to allow us to keep a balance in the EMS system when we were pretty worried about a surge in the other scenarios. So right now, we're still in the planning and no particular stresses in the system.
Dan Hamill has a comment.
Yeah, thanks,
Dan
Barry.
Hamill.
Yep, thank you. I just want to make it clear to everyone on this call that St. Joe South Campus is off the table when it comes to facilities for overflow. Our team were in St. Joe's South Campus last Friday and Saturday, and they reported to us that very little of it is safe and can be used. So that just needs to, that's a non-starter.
Thanks, Dan. Anything from Bellingham Police, Flo, that you want us to know, or?
No, but I guess, Marcus, I can answer your question. We're letting people stay in their camps if they're in their camps.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I kind of figured that.
Mayor Fleetwood, any thoughts? Unmute yourself.
Thank you. I'm just getting briefed daily from our team at Unified Command as it relates to the effort they're putting in for creating isolation and quarantine facilities for any needs that might come out of Bellingham High School. So that's being worked on actively, and I'm just staying on top of it.
All right, thanks a lot, Seth. Anybody else have anything they want to? Yes, Marcus.
Yeah, I just want to throw it out there, kind of just reiterate, the purpose of our group is to try and find shelter for everybody. And I know emergency sheltering is over. We've got cold weather still ahead this week. I just would like to kind of reiterate that I feel like we're pretty tightly bunched in BHS, and rather than turn anybody away, even if that's the one place where we're bringing people to, if we can open up that facility a little wider, if that takes up some classrooms or another space inside the high school, to at least try to hit that 6 foot mark. I think that's important.
Mike Parker.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to mention this before. I just wanted to kind of give people just a brief status update and just highlighting a particular area of concern, and that is so families with children. We currently have 48 in the housing pool. Obviously, we're concerned that as situations kind of worsen, that we may actually get less people signing up for housing. They have bigger needs possibly than getting on a housing list that they may not see much action for. The reason why I want to bring it up is that one of the prime emergency shelters, as people know in this group, is the use of motels. So obviously, as those become utilized for other things, and as Family Promise and other models kind of have shared space, there may be a unique kind of issue for families with children and sheltering, and we are seeing that number being high. So I just wanted to just pass that on. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Michael Lilliquist.
Thank you, Barry. I probably should have asked this earlier. With regard to the use of the Bellingham High School, what is the school district's expectations about the rest of the school year? Will that facility be open from now until the summer break and into August?
So no one knows that answer right now, of course. We certainly had that discussion. Two things I would say about that. One is that if in fact they remained closed for the remainder of the school year, they said they would need the building back by August 10th in order for us to do the disinfecting and sanitation repairs, etc. And then they would be therefore having enough time to get it open for the school year. We also have a clause in the contract, of course, that says that if for some reason schools reopen before the end of the year, that we're going to have to leave that facility. I guess the hope for us is if the schools reopen, it would be at the same time that the need for some of the drastic measures for social distancing and mitigating transmission might also be happening. That would be our hope.
Marcus.
Yes, and I know that I mentioned it earlier, but you know, the idea of a tent encampment is a very attractive one to me. When you get outdoor air moving around, you've actually probably got a lot safer than in a big indoor auditorium. We've got, the weather will get better, and perhaps if we had a tent encampment that was directly adjacent or on the BHS grounds, that kind of makes sense to me, because then we already have our resources there already on site, so we can kind of expand out into the fields there. Would seem like a pretty good idea for overflow, so we get the proper spacing. Thanks.
Carol Frazee.
Yes, what Mike Parker was saying about families and how the hotels might be full eventually with people that are quarantined. I know that on the COVID-19, the neighborhood helpers, they put out a call for people who own Airbnbs and VRBOs that aren't being used right now for nurses and doctors that want to stay away from their families if they've been infected. But maybe we could put out a call if people would, if we need for these 48 families or more may come forward, maybe that's another option, because those Airbnbs and VRBOs aren't being used because people can't travel. So that any ideas we can come up with to house those families is really important to make sure they're safe and have shelter.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Anybody have anything else? I know people need. Go ahead.
Hey, it's Dan from Bellingham City Council. A local hotelier has offered up two of their hotels to house medical workers and such, and it's not free. It's covering costs, but that could be an option for families as well, just to have that in the mix.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Carol?
I don't know if we're coming to an end here. I just want to, before we do, I just want to thank everyone who is working so hard on this. I just want to, just everyone's so serious and working long hours, and just want to thank everyone, because I think, yeah, we've been on these meetings. A lot of people are on Zoom all the time now, and we're so serious. We're working forward, but I just want to thank everyone. It's good seeing your faces.
It really is, Carol. I agree. It's good to see everybody, and I hope everybody's doing well. Anybody have any last final thoughts? I want to let you all get back to work because we have a lot to do. And you all stay safe and healthy and help each other out. We are adjourned.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.